Last year, his power tool business outgrew its factory in the city. A valley town invited him to build up there. The problem? He'd still have to spend 2 days a week down at his old sales headquarters. The answer? The airline. With room for a more efficient layout and pleasanter working conditions, the new plant's turning out more tools at lower unit costs. Most of Walter's key employees moved up here with him, and they like it. Their kids will grow up in an environment that would have been out of their reach down in the city. Walter himself can live in a relaxing, country-ish sort of home that would have been an hour's nerve-wracking traffic drive from his old location. His business done, the trip that once would have kept him 2 nights away from home now finds him returning the same evening with dinner on the plane in time for bridge or a movie with Mrs. McKibben and young Walt. And the new luggage rack right in the cabin even lets him walk straight to his cab without waiting for baggage out front. The sky's even for people who never ride the airplanes, but who benefit from others who do. In cities like Salt Lake, Ogden, Elko, Reno. Doctors in cities distant from the metropolitan hospital centers, doctors like Bob Joyce, once found it hard to keep up to date on the new things. The professional magazines and local meetings are fine, but the specialist still wants clinic work in one of the big medical centers. Mrs. Joyce approves of the clinic trips, especially in the first part of the week when she can go along with the doctor at the family half fare. Half fare, but full comfort. Early this morning, Dr. Joyce made his essential calls. He's traveled what would have been a full day's trip by car, and he still has a full afternoon ahead for the kind of work that keeps him in touch with everything new in his profession. And tomorrow morning, he'll be back in his practice, ready for whatever new problems the day may bring. The sky's for every merchant. For merchants in Cheyenne, Scotts Bluff, North Platte, Grand Island, Lincoln. Today, women in Convair cities are as smartly dressed and shod on Main Street as they could be on Fifth Avenue. There are bigger shops than Brissak's, but few smarter. Brissak's displays are as fresh and varied, thanks to the air, as any in the metropolis. Perhaps even a little ahead, since Margaret Brissac knows her customers as friends and shops for them as individuals. There'll be no check for this meal, no tips to the attendants. Margaret Brissac flies to Chicago and New York for actually less money than she can travel by Pullman. The schedules are arranged to bring the Convairs into their terminals for quick connections with mainline flights to anywhere in the country, or the world for that matter. Margaret Brissac, however, will lay over one flight for a quick visit to her Chicago wholesalers, with no problems on mind about luggage transfer, since the tag on that smart green case will automatically transfer it to the non-stop DC-6 or DC-7 that she'll go out on. Destination, New York. Like buyers for more and more department stores and specialty shops in Convair cities, Margaret Brissac uses the airplane to visit the top metropolitan stylists and wholesalers several times a year, without having to be away from the store for more than a couple of days at a time. And Air Express, with its next-day delivery service for odd-size items, lets her keep down her inventory. At the same time, she increases the variety of her styles and models, and everybody wins. The sky is for everyone who likes good living. In South Bend, Fort Wayne, Toledo, Cleveland. The Farleys like good living, and they can afford it. And Mrs. Farley particularly wants Joan to get a broad background of gracious living before she marries next year and settles down to a young family. For good living, New York has more restaurants, but none much better than a couple right here in town for luxury foods. Tonight's special lobsters come to Victor's by Convair only one day from the cold, salt water of Maine. The orchids for tonight's corsage. 2 days ago, were still growing on a tropic vine in Honolulu, and when a good play opens on Broadway. Or Mrs. Farley just gets a little restless. New York is only a few hours away. Comfortable hours, even luxurious hours, with the cabin pressurized to a pleasant altitude and ventilated with air conditioning that cools or warms without uncomfortable drafts. Pleasant hours, with reclining seats of foam rubber and big double-paned windows that never fog up to obscure the scenery below. 4 miles and more every minute. And yet up here, you hardly realize you're moving. This morning, a golf course in Ohio. Tonight, a play in New York. Tomorrow and Saturday, more of that background for Joan. And home Sunday morning in time for church. The sky's for everyone who must be in 2 places at once. The troubleshooters from the industries of Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, Bradford, Olean, from Youngstown, Warren, Sharon, from Akron, Canton. To a factory in Ohio comes an urgent call from a mine in Nevada, where the old mine cars are being replaced with a new rubber railroad. On a big job like this, every day counts. Rush out your top man. But Nevada's 2 days away by train, and the top man is due on a job in Cuba 4 days from now. Not long ago, a department head would have had to reach for an answer. Now he reaches for a phone. But one man's answer may be another man's headache. It's exactly that to George Crockett, the troubleshooter, who has a date with Mrs. Crockett 3 days from now. A date he made 10 years ago. Well, what do? You know what you do. You're in business, a job is in trouble, so you do what the man says. The morning flight out of Akron makes an easy connection to Chicago with a non-stop west. Plenty of time to think out the job while you ride. And maybe, just maybe, if the deal doesn't run into any snags. It's wonderful how much brighter the world looks after that second cup of hot coffee. Out on the job. It'll be no pushover, but none of them are. And there's still 2 days to the big 10th. Let's get at it, son. The hours go by. A few snags, a couple of breaks. With the big 10th now 1 day away. $2,000 miles out, a job of work done, 2,000 miles back. It would have been 5 days at the least by train or car, and you're back home in 3. Nice for the man who signs your paycheck. Nicer still for you and the lady who helps you spend it. The sky is for everyone who travels to sell. From Moline, Davenport, Rock Island, from Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines. The new combination of multiple stop air routes and the rental automobile is bringing about a quiet revolution among traveling salesmen. Vincent Harris is a good example. Harris used to travel a territory roughly 300 miles across. He drove his own car. He was always away from home except for weekends. As his kids grew, they began to ask who was that nice man who came to visit Mommy on Sundays. He never thought of flying until the time young Vinny got run over and in the emergency had to leave his car and come home by plane. Now he's a commuter. Let's see, today's Wednesday. Harris covered his northern towns Monday and Tuesday. He spent last night at home, had a good sleep in his own bed, and he's relaxing on this early morning ride to start his East End calls, fresh and fit. Of course, he needs a car out there, but now he orders a rental car when he picks up his ticket, and it's waiting for him when he gets off the plane. His regular air travel charge card is both credit reference and charge plate. And in this locality, the car costs him 10 cents a mile and $7 a day, which in his case figures out at around $2 a call. "11:30 a.m. He's 200 miles from home, and this is his third call in the morning. He'll have a leisurely lunch with a fourth customer and be on the road again before he could even have reached town under the old system of driving his own car from home. And he's still fresh and fit. His territory's been expanded until now he covers 3 states. Expenses up little or nothing. Earnings up a lot. On the return trip, he'll write up his orders and reports, be able to lock his business in his briefcase before Jeannie and the thundering herd meet him at the airport for another night with his family instead of alone in some distant hotel. It's a whole new way of life. The sky's for everyone who wants double pleasure on a vacation. From Philadelphia, from Toledo, Milwaukee, Moline, Des Moines, Omaha. 2 years ago, Mary and Bates and her gang drove to New Orleans for their vacation. It was fun, but the drive used up 3 days each way, and their sightseeing down south was pretty crowded. Last year, California, same problem. This year, says Mary, it'll be different. Very different indeed. Well, at last, it's actually happening. For 2 whole weeks, no dictation, no comptometers, no filing folders, but Hawaiian guitars, the magic of orchids under a golden tropic moon. And not improbably, 4 tall, tanned, and terrific young men. Diamond Head, with 12 full days out of this 2 weeks on that beach at Waikiki. And since a girl has to be practical, it's with hotel, tours, everything wrapped up in a package, including round-trip plane fare, all for not much more than the cost of an ordinary vacation. This is living. And for a final touch, a nice blustery homecoming to tee off the tails of the South Sea sun. The sky is for everyone who has relatives to visit. Like a certain nice elderly couple on a farm between Providence and Hartford. There are 2 grandchildren out west now, and that's quite an attraction. After Dad's operation, he wasn't too eager for that long ride on the train. But ever since Graham and the son-in-law got him into the air for the first time, there's been no holding him. He and Graham make the trip twice a year now, but every time there's the same old argument about the luggage. Graham always figures there's room for another present or a fudge cake in the 40-pound baggage allowance. Dad's always just as sure that this time she's stretching it too far. Of course, there's 80 pounds on the 2 tickets, but Dad's always been a careful man. The bag does lift a little heavy. Now, it'll be worth $1 or 2 excess to tell the kids if he told Graham once, he told her 1,000 times.
39.5 pounds, Mr. Wilcox.
next trip. The route was flying DC-3s when the folks first started making the trip, but Graham likes the easy stairs of the Convair, the way the cabin floor stays level when the plane's on the ground. Every trip, Graham asked the captain the same question. She never has gotten squared away on this pressurization thing. Well, it seems that the airplane is flying high in the smooth, thin air, 14,000 feet, but the cabin under pressure inside, you might say, is flying less than a third that high, which is why your ears don't pop anymore when the plane lets down for a landing. Tired? Who's tired? But the train they might have taken is still a day and a night away. A trip that long, a man might get tired. The sky's for everyone who would like to make a trip east for free. From San Diego, Long Beach, Salinas. The sky may be for everyone, but a big chunk of private is reserved at the moment for Wally French and the very new Mrs. French.